Cool. So, what governing body did you have to go through to be certified?
British Gymnastics.
Cool. So, real briefly, could you tell me what about your experience to achieve your qualification?
Okay, so we had to turn up on the day, and then we did several in-class activities. So learning from PowerPoints what we should and what we shouldn't do, because it was only a level 1. It was very much the basics of what we should do and how to be a good assistant. And then we had a few activities to do on the trampoline with coaching, but it was very, very basic. That was
Cool.
pretty much it.
Did it cost very much?
How much I didn't pay, my club paid, but at the time, it was before UKCC changed it all, so I think it was like £200.
Cool.
So I guess it's quite expensive, yeah.
Okay, so moving on, do you have a specific learning style?
Do I? Yeah, kinesthetic. I learn by doing.
Is there like a particular reason for that? Is there...
I don't know, I'm dyslexic, so I find...
Really?
Yeah.
No way.
Yeah.
You're joking. No,
I have a lot of, I hate reading. I find it really difficult. If someone gives me information on a bit of paper, I'm like, nah, I'd rather just go and do it. Or if someone's describing something to me, I'm much better trial and error, because then I find I learn it better.
Cool. Same here. Do you reckon a formal coach education is effective?
I think for some people it depends what they want to get out of it when you go into it. If for like a mum or a dad that just wants to do the coaching qualification to have a little bit more education and be qualified and insured to take classes, then that's fine. But I think people that want to do coaching as a career and want to develop it, I don't think there's enough structure, there's not enough models and theories implemented from sports science research that actually we can help, that we can actually develop on and learn better from.
Cool. So in my essay, I'm going to cover self-efficacy.
Okay.
So do you reckon coach education could improve self-efficacy?
Definitely like for mums and dads or volunteers, because they would have gone on this course, they would have felt that they've learned a bit because they've been told a lot of basic information that they didn't necessarily know, so then they would probably feel more confident. But I know when I go and do my level 2 next month, I don't think it will help my confidence at all, just because of what I've already learned as a coach from other experiences.
Okay, cool. So what is your opinion on the content provided in your formal coach education?
Well, some of it doesn't go with what sports science says, the
How
strategies. So for the British Gymnastics one, it talks about demonstrations, and it says that a full speed demonstration, if applicable, but we know from skill acquisition, full speed demonstrations are very applicable all the time regardless. So it's very difficult for doing coaching science. I'm just like, well, that's wrong. So I think the content sometimes, this is just my experience from British Gymnastics, so maybe in other courses, I don't know, they do it differently, but there's definitely not enough grounded research, and it's not updated, definitely. It needs to be updated.
So moving on to reflection
Okay.
as part of formal coach education, do you reckon reflection is an effective way for coaches to learn? It's totally valid, whatever you say, there's no right or wrong.
I do, after some sessions, I'm like, oh, that did work, that didn't work, but I've never actively written it down and acted. So maybe like if a certain coaching point worked really well with a particular athlete, I'll try and use that again. But I think athletes vary differently. Every athlete's different. It is important, because otherwise you can't develop as a coach. I understand that. But I think for me personally, I really struggle doing it, just because I don't find... I would rather go and learn something than reflect on my practice, and I'd rather learn what I've learned then implement it. So I suppose that's developing me as a coach in some areas, but it's not really working on my flaws. That's probably because I'm quite ego orientated with my coaching. So
I agree with you. So assuming there are gaps in formal coach education, what is you feel is negative about formal coach education?
well, like the lack the lack of models and sports-specific structure implemented. So that I don't think there's enough skill acquisition in formal coach education.
Just exclusively?
Well, that's the fundamentals of how people learn, and that's not in any way at the moment enforced upon coaches, because coaches don't understand how, if they don't understand how people learn, how can they make it more effective, and how can we develop better athletes?
Nice. Alright, so assuming you know what neophytes are?
Oh yeah, what are they?
So
you did say
novice and youth coaches, so all combined.
Okay, yeah.
Alright, so do you reckon formal coach education is useful for the younger generation?
Yeah, I'd say so. It needs like it needs tweaking, but I think for like a novice coach and a young athlete, they probably feel empowered by doing it because they feel I've got this qualification, it justifies what I'm doing. So maybe on a certain level, I think it's more encouraging to do coaching if they've got a qualification. They're more inclined to do it, I'd say.
Cool. So moving further onto informal, what is your opinion on informal coaching and why do you think it's effective?
The way I have learned, the best way I have learned to develop as a coach is through working with two other coaches. We did reflect on sessions, but it was a group discussion. After every session, we would always have a chat while packing the trampolines up, and after as we were walking, how that session went, what we did, what we should do better, what I thought worked well with this athlete, what they thought worked well with another one. So it was always informal discussions about what we were doing, and I had that club for 2 years, and so after every session, that's what we were doing every week. So that really developed what was working and what wasn't working, and that changed how I implemented stuff.
Cool. So what are your opinions, once again, so in comparison to formal coach education, what are your opinions on informal for neophytes?
Informal for neophytes? I'd say it depends who they're looked after by. So if it was observing, they'd need to be observing someone obviously doing the right practice. Do you want to pause just while that's... I don't know if you'll be able to hear.
Well, that's cool. Yeah.
It's okay.
Yeah, cool.
I think the people that they would be being mentored by or having those discussions with would have to be educated beyond what their current knowledge state is, so that they actually gain something from it.
So almost like shadowing.
Yeah. They'd have to really. I think it'd have to be more. I don't know. I hadn't thought about that. I think.
No, it's fine. Okay, cool. So, if you were a director, so hypothetically speaking, what order would you have coaches learn?
What order do you mean?
Would you have them formal first or informal first, or?
I think there is I don't like formal education, but there is definitely a need for it, because it does for insurance, but it also gives the base knowledge, and it also gives everyone the same opportunity for the same base knowledge on every course. So when everyone's done a level 2, they're all in the same playing field with formal coach education. But I think there's different percentage amounts of it. So the basis of developing a good coach, you would have a lot more informal coach education. So I would have all the younger ones sit down and talk like I did. That's how I learned. So I think that was the most effective way. So
are you saying effective way in general or for you?
It was for me, but I personally think if I was in charge, that is how I would do it. I would I would ask everyone to sit down and have a conversation, after, not every session, but definitely, and have people mentored and followed and shadowed by people that are definitely, I would see, credible, using sports science strategies, and so they understand the principles of why coaches coach certain ways, so they don't just regurgitate what they've just seen that other coach do.
Cool. Sorry, I didn't cut you off there, did I? So, in general, so to summarise, conclude everything up, Are there any critiques you would like to convey about formal coach education or coach education as a whole?
I just think it needs more sports science in it, and it needs models and it needs theories. It needs to have why people learn certain ways. It needs to have organisational structures. It needs to be all rejigged and refreshed. So it's not written by some old diddy in an office that doesn't understand certain principles of learning.
Is that from your personal experience?
Yeah.
Or is there a lack, you suggesting?
Yeah, there's just not enough, it's just not new enough. But that's because I've done coaching science now, for 3 years, so I'm more educated in it than I was 3 years ago, so I guess my outlook on formal education has drastically changed, for the better. So, yeah, it needs changing.
Nice. So, final question. What do you feel is the most effective approach for a coach to learn? So this could be reflection, formal coach, informal. A couple of people suggested combination.
Oh, okay. I think, I don't know, I wouldn't say it's observation, because I didn't learn anything from my coach, because she knew how to teach me well, but I didn't learn any coaching aspects from her. But I'd probably say reflection. After doing this reflective log, it really makes you question why you do everything, and I think it helps because you don't have to reflect internally on your own, you can reflect in a group. And I think the reflecting in group discussion with like-minded coaches is very, very helpful. I would say is probably the best way.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks, Rosie.
It's alright.
Lovely.